Yes, sir.
Instead of taking the cap, she's been coming with the cap.
I do have
It's supposed to rain on Friday.
You're good.
Ready to roll? Oh, it's 31. We're late. Welcome, everyone. It is 6:31, and I want to be very respectful of your time. And I appreciate that each and every one of you came out, that you love this church enough to actually dig into the minutiae and the details of running this place. I appreciate that you're all here. Now, that said, if you would pray with me, and then I will turn it over and let Richard handle it. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you for this evening and this group of people that loves you and loves your church enough and cares enough to come out on a Tuesday night and just listen to what's going on, listen to all the details, and be a part of the running of this church. I know it's not always the prettiest thing in the world, but it's us. We're people that love you, and, well, we're not always the prettiest, but we do love you, Lord. I just pray that you'd be with us and guide us tonight. Watch over us, strengthen us, give us grace in our words, wisdom in our ways, and show us your will. For it's in Christ's name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. Whoa. Amen, said God from above. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. What a nice turnout. This is awesome. Thank you guys for being out here. And we know that we've got people that are online with us as well. We thank you for joining us. Part of this is going to be our normal run-of-the-mill stuff, and some of this is going to be, I'm going to call it the best of times, and what's this, that best of times, worst of times type thing. So we got a couple of great things, and we got a couple of not so great things to talk about tonight. So we're going to walk through that together. I will provide opportunities for conversation, for questions as we go through some of this stuff. But I hope to walk out of here tonight with just a wonderful, hey, we're excited about where we're going moving forward. So we're going to start off with our normal reports, which starts with finance tonight. I'm going to introduce to you Mr. Kevin Moriarty. Say, whoop, whoop. There you go. All right. See what we do at All Pro Dads this morning? We do one clap. So whenever the person comes up, you give it one clap. So you go 1, 2, 3. All right, try it again. 1, 2, 3. All right, go Kevin.
So,
What'd you do?
green?
What'd you do?
No, I'm red.
Oh.
All right, see, I'm not a normal public speaker, so that works. Kevin Moriarty, I am the new finance chair for 2023. I've had the pleasure of being on the committee, though, for the past 2 years. Richard gave me a very tiny printout of the numbers, so I'm going to probably stare up at the screen to make sure I'm saying it correctly. Can we go to the first slide?
There you go.
So for 2022, we had a total operating budget for the church of $2,049,998. And go ahead and click. Our actual expenses, though, for the year were $1,989,483. So due to the great leadership of this church, we were able to stay below that set budget.
And that's not the best news yet.
If we go to the next slide, or next click, we actually had giving of $2,253,794. So we actually had a surplus. So we made it through COVID. We celebrated the 150th anniversary, and we had a great year from a financial standpoint.
It was awesome. All right. Everybody give Kevin the one clap. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you, Kevin. I do want to sort of expand on that a little bit. Just to talk about, this is probably, we didn't get quite back to look at 2019 yet, but this might have been the strongest giving year in the history of Anona. And 2019 had been our previous best right before COVID struck. So what a wonderful celebration for us to say, coming out of COVID, that we probably just had our strongest year ever for Anona United Methodist Church in terms of giving. And we're seeing a lot of things happening in terms of the church right now. You're seeing not just the giving has been wonderful, but our attendance is up. So if you were here, I was sitting in traditional worship late service this past week, and I'm like, it's so nice to have people to talk to again, you know, and not just a handful. It's just been so good to have the people out there. Coming out of COVID, want to give a reminder of we did go into our reserves. And what we've been doing as a church is leadership, I should say, getting to the place where we were trying to maintain 50% of our budget in reserves. So when you see that $2,049,000 number, we've been maintaining 50% of that. We built that starting about 5 years ago. When I came into the finance committee, we started working on saying, how can we get that reserve built up, which happened to hit just in time for COVID, so that when we went through COVID, the anxiety levels for leadership, the anxiety levels for the church as a whole, we were stressed, but it wasn't overwhelming, right? As you're going through and realizing your attendance is going this way and our giving was going this way, we were able to come through that and weather it quite well. Then coming out of it, having gone into the reserves some during that time, we received a will about the time we were coming back out, and the first thing that leadership did, these are the chairpersons of the committees, and Casey, there we go, and they worked to say, let's get those reserves right back up. And so the first thing that will went towards was making sure that our reserves were back in good shape. So we're back at the 50% level coming out, plus we're now running with the surplus on this past year to help us out. And I'm not done yet. Did I say some of this is the best of times? We applied for a thing that Elisa had found out about through the conference. She went to a seminar to find out about a thing called the Employee Retention Credit. That was available to nonprofits, and there we go. In our conjunction and cooperation with ACDC, looking at the staff as a whole, okay, we were able to submit, and we hired a company that was actually the company that came to do the training for us at this meeting. And leadership, once again, said that's probably money well spent. It was several $1,000s, but if we ended up getting the money for the ERC, that would more than make up for it, and it has. All right, so it's going to come in 3 payments. We've already received the first payment. It's based on per quarter during a certain time that we were running through the COVID crisis moment. And for each one of those quarters, if you're holding on to your employees, which we were able to do, did I mention, because of the reserves, right? So we weren't having to go through a bunch of cuts and things like that. We retained our employees, and that got us, in that first round, $195,252. And there's still 2 more payments to come that are somewhere in that neighborhood. So we have another $433,000 more that we expect will be coming. So there's going to be 2 more payments that would be coming from them. We did give $30,000 to our staff as a bonus this past year to say thank you to them. They also got a 5% pay increase coming into 2023. So overall, the total expected from that ERC is $628,000. And it could actually be a little bit more than that. This is still assumption. There's no guarantee the second check and third check come in because they're looking at the numbers for each one and making sure that everything is done correctly. But our hope is that we come out to a place where that money is available to us. Is that not a best of times moment? All right. So that is good. And if I thought about giving, Kevin mentioned it briefly. Part of the reason the giving was high this year was because why? 150th. All right, so there were some special gifts that were given for the 150th anniversary, so that helped pop it up a little bit. Our giving is sort of dropping back down into normal. So if you look in the weekly bulletin, the number's in there every week, and you'll see sort of where we're standing in terms of not yet the current budget, which I'm going to talk about next because we haven't approved this current budget yet, but this is what we're looking at moving forward.
But just a reminder that we will be celebrating our 151st in November.
Yes. Hopefully you got my letter.
Don't forget.
Talking about the 151st anniversary. If you did not get my finance letter, let me know, and I'd be happy to mail it to you again. I'll spend how much does a stamp cost these days? $100. All right, so we're going to switch over to our budget in the coming year. You just heard it was $2,049,000. In the coming year, we're looking at moving that to $2,138,611.02. Who knows? This is not finalized. It's not approved by Finance Committee yet. But I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about it. In terms of where we were last year versus this year, that is an $88,613 increase, which is 4.32%. And that sounds like a lot, but if you think about what it costs for Social Security to go up this year, we're really trying to stay about half of what inflation is running. And we're doing that in spite of the fact that our insurance from the conference is going up 25% this year. So they're having to pass along the cost. They have not done that the past couple of years, but that is happening this year. It is still $115,000 lower, so we're trying to be conservative in our managing of the money. It's $115,000 lower than what our giving was in 2022. All right, so we're not saying, hey, we made that much this last year, let's hit up to that. But it did provide that 5% increase for the staff. It's covering the 25% insurance increase. And obviously, everything associated with facilities is going through the roof. It is just going flat out through the roof, literally through. When I talked about the roof, I mean literally through the roof.
We're just falling apart.
Or, yeah, we had a funeral. So right before I was here, we were doing a funeral for Fred Thompson that finished about 5:30. And we switched on the air conditioner over in the chapel, and it went patooey, and I'm done. So
10-ton?
the 10-ton unit, this is not a 3, like something you have at your house. So these things cost money, and every time we're getting hit by those things, it's a serious impact because of the inflation that is on top of that. So we have this facility cost. That said, I hope you're okay with where we're trying to head and trying to stay at about half of inflation moving forward. A large chunk of that is out of our control. A part of that is your generosity towards our staff. Say a 5% increase for them, which I think is well-deserved and actually not enough. If you think of what the staff does for this church, we have cut back significantly on the staff through COVID, so we're down to pretty much directors. Anybody else that I have to cut moving forward is a position like a youth director, or a children's ministry director, or a choir director. There's no more places I can cut without literally cutting into the leaders of program ministries in the church. All right, that's where we're at in terms of our budget and how we trimmed it down to get through COVID. And so we're trying to manage that as we're coming back in to slowly filter some money back into the process. I'll also say another good news thing out of this, we did include some additional money for program ministry. So children's ministry, youth ministry, trustees, I feel like I'm forgetting one or two of them. They've not been increased for over a decade, guys. So if you want to talk about inflation, there's been no increases for our children's ministry, our youth ministry for at least a decade. And we popped them just a little, like $2,000 for each department, just to say we need to start addressing the fact that this funding is not getting to you, because basically the thing that eats up your cost is two things, and that is facilities and staff. Right? And so when you're trying to get the money to actually do the ministry, this is the part that ends up having to, in essence, be sacrificed, because you're trying to make sure you keep your staff. We don't want to lose them, and we have to fix the air conditioner. Right?
Yes.
I don't know why this keeps going out. All right. Questions about budget? I'll just pause for a second. Budget or finances? Anything?
Remember, there's a 2-minute lag online.
Yeah, Ron. What do you mean by capital improvement? The reserve is there. So that money has been replenished. It's about 50% of the budget. So if we were at $2,049,000, we're at $1,025,000.
What's the trustees spending for the year?
Oh, trustees. I don't have the number right in front of me, Ron. I don't have the full budget in front of me, but I'm happy to share that number. There's any number you want to see is available for you to be able to look at budget-wise. So I'm very happy to share that with you. I just don't have it in front of me at the moment. Other questions? All right, then we're going to move to trustees update. Our trustees chairperson is unable to be with us today, so we're going to have to make the sacrifice of dealing with Jeremy.
Hey, these will be comical.
Give Jeremy a one clap. 1, 2, 3. There we go. See?
1.5 at least. So we've got a lot going on in trustees, guys. Richard is going to share a little bit later when he talks about the 2022 summary, about some things from last year. So I'm not going to go really into last year, the stuff that they were involved in. And quite honestly, there isn't a week that goes by here that there's not projects and needs. I will just want to give a big shout out and thank you to Scott and his team. Scott has done an amazing job in working with just all the challenges of a 10-acre campus that's 150 years old. Some of the buildings are pretty darn close. And for him to continue to manage the resources, to make the best that we can to get things repaired and fixed and done. You hopefully have seen the evidence of that, especially this past year around the campus. So I want to focus just on, just briefly, a couple quick things we're focusing on in particular for 2023. We've got a few big projects that are underway. The first one is our chapel conference room. Now, if you're not familiar with that room, that's the ugliest room on campus. Just go look for it. You will find it. It looks horrible. That is actually our original sanctuary when we were celebrating from the 150th. It is the wooden building with a wooden floor that was originally founded many, many years ago. It is right adjacent to the chapel. So we use it as a classroom. It's been kind of a catch-all for a lot of stuff over the years. It needs a lot of TLC. And so last year we pulled a team together from our trustees and from the church membership to really look at that space and to say, how can we make it a space that gives that nod to the historical, but also can meet the current and modern needs for classes that meet in there, for adult Sunday school, for our AC/DC that are in there with their children during the day. Just many, many, many needs. And so we brought on board a interior designer who worked with the team. This was a woman who actually helped us with the front lobby project back a few years ago when we did the front lobby. And they worked together on coming up with some ideas and thoughts on how they could make the space both functional but also livable. Had some great ideas. One of the challenges we ran across was many of the ideas were just simply not cost effective. Some of the ideas proposed were just for things that on the cost end were quite significantly higher than what we were looking to pay for things like storage and chairs and stuff like that. And so we took the ideas and then said, how do we want to accomplish these, but in a way that also respects the costs involved and the funding to make this happen. And so this is where Debbie, our trustees chair, is amazing. If you're not familiar with her line of work, she manages thousands of rental properties, apartments, condos, you name it, and knows everyone in the business. If you need an interior painter, if you need a landscaper, if you need a concrete curb pourer. She found us a concrete curb pourer in, I think, 24 hours. It was amazing. So we reached out to her to say, what can we do to really help with this? She's given us already a few resources to go with that. And so Scott is now taking the lead with this project, with the team, and working with Debbie. And their goal this year is to really take those ideas and to bring them to fruition and to find a way that we can really upgrade and update that space with the nod to our historical as well. So that's the chapel conference room. The other thing you might notice is those lovely vehicles we have outside, our lovely church vans. They are wonderful, they are great, they are old. And sadly, they are at a point in their lifespan where we can actually not drive them out of the county for fear of repair issues. They're simply not functional. They will work around town okay for just short distances, but if the youth want to go to Rock the Universe, or if we need to take a group to the children's home or any of these special events, they're not at a place where we feel comfortable to send them out on longer trips. And so the reality is we need to replace them. So the trustees actually had, back last year, received a will that was wanting to help support children and youth in particular. And then when we discussed it with trustees who deals with our wills there, one of the big needs we have heard, especially from our youth program, but also our children as well, is we need reliable transportation. If we're going to have small groups going to ministries in the community, if we're going to be going to Rock the Universe, if we're going to be sending these groups throughout our community to help connect, we need vehicles that we can operate there. So the plan is that we will be utilizing those funds, and I will not quote numbers because I don't remember. 44? Well, the will was 44 was the will, correct? Okay. And the trustees have also earmarked from their reserves an additional fund to go with that. Was that 100, right? Okay. 100,000, so somewhere around 144 that is now set aside. The hope is to get 2 vehicles, but you all know this thing called inflation. And so we have not been able to get far enough in the process yet to see if 144,000 will actually get us 2 of these vehicles. We are looking specifically at ones that will not require special licensing. When you get to a certain size in design, you have to have special licensing, you have to have air brake training, I believe, and other things. We don't want that because that really limits the ability for us to do ministry with these vehicles. And so we're looking at ones like you see out there are 2 buses that we call them to see what we can get. So Scott's also on that team as well to look to see how we can move forward in getting us hopefully 2, but if not 1 really good vehicle so we can move forward on our vehicles for this year. The third item is our contemporary sanctuary sound system. You all remember our contemporary sanctuary? Yeah? That was built now in 2003. Guess how long ago that was? 20 years ago. How many of y'all still have a 20-year-old piece of sound equipment in your house? Well, maybe a few of you. Okay, I'm sure. Okay. Never mind. I'm not going to ask that question. All right.
I had hair back then.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And I had no children back then. So the challenge is when I talk about the sound system, we're talking about the speakers, we're talking about the wiring, we're talking about the amplifiers, all of the equipment that really drives not only the worship service, but any major event you have in that space is now 20 years old and well past its point of lifespan. Jonathan does an amazing job of holding it together literally with duct tape and baling wire and spit and everything else to keep that running, but came to us last year saying, we've really reached the end of this. And what's beautiful is also our 30-year study that our trustees have on our entire campus indicated to us saying, guys, you're overdue on this. You're really overdue. You need to consider it. So working with trustees last year, Jonathan did an amazing job of meeting with a lot of the professionals in the business, got several bids on that. We brought them to trustees. They made a decision on working with the company, I believe. Was it L Acoustics, Jonathan? L Acoustics is the company that will be doing the install. So we got it approved. We've got the contract signed. Now we're dealing with this thing called the supply chain. And some of you may have heard of that. It's not done yet. We kind of thought we were through that. Not everything. Technology in particular is still an issue with computer chips and with some supply chains. Our original hope was to start working on this Q1 of this year. It's more likely looking at probably end of Q2, start of Q3. So that's somewhere early summer. So May, June-ish is when the company believes they should have all of their materials to. Is that still correct, Jonathan? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Good answer. All right. They should be looking at that time frame to start the install, which actually works for us because one of the things we do not want to do is unplug a major sound system before Easter Sunday. Just saying that doesn't go over well generally. So we're going to wait till early summer, get that project underway, and get that replaced and upgraded so it is at a better functioning level. Again, there are way more projects that are going on. Just like Richard said, there are air conditioners every once in a while dropping on us, and you name it. But again, if you want to learn any more about those, don't hesitate to reach out to Scott Magnus, who runs that whole department, to Debbie Reinhardt, who's our trustees chair, to myself, to Richard, or to any of our trustees members who would be happy to share with you as we're walking through to care for the things that we have put in charge of for our campus here at Anona. And that's trustees. All right, thank you.
And next we have staff parish. There's going to be very brief updates. So you might notice when we switch over to the SPRC screen, right now, there we go. This is the 2023 Ryder Cup team. So those of you who do not know what the Ryder Cup team, that's the international golf competition team. All right, so we took the group over to Top Golf and just had a fun day together, just for us to be able to sort of blow off some steam, hit some balls. We've determined that Gideon, who you may not know, one of our young tech people, is the hardest driving of any of us. He could hit the back net almost with a golf ball.
Nate was good there.
The most stylish was Miss Casey over here. She was dancing as she was golfing. And Nate is the best actual golfer of any of us. He actually knew what he was doing. There he is in the back. So yes, Nate was the best golfer. We are still having a position that's available for us that we're trying to find. We've been trying to find this for a year, which is a nursery director. It is a position that is really important to the life of the church. We have a teacher in there now that's doing that, but she's been just doing it, saying, I'll fill the gap until. And we just are having the hardest time finding a part-time person that would consider running our nursery. And we do have pretty high standards, and that's part of the issue as well. We want to make sure that our kids are not just safe, which is the first most important thing, but they're growing up in our faith. And they have, goodness, why does that keep going out? have this love and support, the love and support of a person that's just committed to being there on a regular basis. So if you know somebody like that, please send them our way. And obviously, we have one other opening as well.
We do. If you were in traditional worship 2 or 3 Sundays ago, you heard our announcement about Nate. Nate shared with us his change. And guys, I just want to kind of reiterate, this is a beautiful moment for Nate. You know, if you've not
I would push pause for a second because you might have some people from Contemporary who do not know.
That's true. So Nate has shared with us that he is actually heading back to medical school. I'm talking for him. I'm looking right at him right here. So is it considered medical school, Nate? No, it's not going to. What is, all right, I know it's a
Medical
cardiac
perfusion.
perfusionist is the program. So he is looking to go to a specialized program to be a cardiac perfusionist. If you ask what that is, all I can tell you is it's the guy in the hospital that will stop your heart and restart it and make sure you survive. So it's kind of an important job for someone in the medical field. It's very specialized training. There's probably only a handful of colleges in the country that actually offer the training for this. Sadly, the nearest one to here was 4 or 5 states away, I think. Was it South Carolina or something like that? And so he is looking to move into that program, to move into his phase of life. This will happen most likely sometime the end of July. Could happen as early as May. I think there was one program he was looking at that has a little earlier admission process. So he's still kind of working through. It's a very intense process to get into these programs with interviews and things like that. So he's still underway with that. Obviously, guys, we are going to miss him terribly. I shared on that Sunday, and I'll share with you again, that he is, I really do believe God sent him to us in the time that we needed most after COVID there, to really help bring us out of a tough time, especially in our traditional worship. And he has not only done that, he has done that beautifully, inspiring and giving us hope again. And so our hope moving forward is to continue what he's already started in our traditional worship there. Now, what I want to talk about tonight is a little more of the detail of the process. We didn't talk about this on that Sunday, but I want to let you in on how does this search process work, you know, what are we looking at time frame and all that. So I've already pulled together a team of representatives from our major traditional worship arts groups. These are people that are active in the various groups that we have in our traditional worship. And we're pulling a meeting together starting next week. So they'll actually be meeting next week on this. And the plan is we're going to be not only looking for that next staff person, but we're also going to be reviewing our current and future needs of the ministry. Where are we now? Where do we see ourselves going in the next year, 5 years? And how do we want to find that right person to join us in making that journey with us? The plan is we're going to have probably a job description / advertising information done by the end of February. So probably early March, we will get the official job description out so that way people can start applying. We'll look at March and April for the application process. So March and April, we'll be sending this out to colleges, to universities, to multiple places, to other churches, and through the Methodists and other denominations. So we can let them know what we're looking for there. And then probably end of April, early May, depending on the candidates that apply, then we will hold auditions for the top probably 2 to 3, depending on what we see there. And potentially we could bring someone on board as soon as June 1st, though none of that is in stone. So we're still working to see how that might happen. The challenge is you don't know. This is a post-COVID job market, guys, and there's still a lot of unknowns in individuals and what that might mean, and willingness to move, just to see what's out there. So a couple things going forward. What we're looking for going forward is going to be a little different kind of position. One of the realities we're finding in the job market, especially in the musical field, more oftentimes we will find that there are a lot of younger candidates that are coming right out of school. They might have gotten their master's, they have maybe had their first appointment somewhere, a few years of experience, but not extensive experience there. Got great musical skills, but needing a place to grow. And so moving forward, we're going to be looking at this in 2 parts. Part number 1 is what Richard shared on the Sunday morning. I will be stepping back into the traditional worship at Anona. My role really is to be the old guy of the room, is to be the person to really help build and establish the systems and the structures and the schedules and the routines. How do we do these things? Keeping it to a place where there's some consistency and ability for this to continue to be an active and vibrant ministry. And in addition to that, we will be looking for another full-time director to work alongside with me. And the hope is to find someone that might just be finishing out of their master's degree or maybe a couple years experience even, and looking for that first church to really learn and grow. Obviously, very solid keyboard is something we're going to need, so solid piano, solid organ. I'm hoping for some choral experience as well, though I'm not, that one to me can be an area of growth. That's an area I can teach. And so we're going to look at the candidates and see who's the right person for that position. So really looking at a team approach moving forward with this position to make this work. So, and the hope for me long-term, honestly, in this, guys, I hope to be able, over time, this is going to take some time, to shape this into a place where we no longer fear transition, where we can have a moment and love the Nate while he's with us and the next Nate or whoever we find that next person there, and be able to love and cherish what they teach and the energy and what they bring. And if they decide, whatever reason in their life, to move on to that next step in their career, we can send them with love, and we can look forward to the next and have a system and a structure and ability to keep this generating over time so we can have the best of both. So that's kind of our hope going forward with that process.
Did that include worship?
Oh, no, that's a separate category, Richard. Am
That's
I supposed to stop, or do I just keep talking? I keep going, right?
You're next.
All right, I'm next.
Thanks.
So,
Yeah, we should be up on the worship slide, guys.
so next we're going to talk about worship.
There you go.
There we go. Got a few fun little pictures up there. First thing is Nate is still here. So, you know, come out and come to worship. He's right in the back there. So, and guys, I also want to reiterate Nate's heart. One of the first things he told me, he says, I will give you 110%, you know, till the day I need to go. And I appreciate that. I really do. That he loves this church, he loves his people, and he loves the Lord. And he is just going to pour himself out in that time. We're going to count on it. So a couple things coming up want to remind you of. Number one, the piano duet concert is back on the calendar. I know you guys are all disappointed when that had to be canceled. There were some medical issues there. It is back. It is Sunday, March 5th at 3 p.m. Sunday, March 5th at 3 p.m. in here. Come see two pianos. It will be fiery. It'll be exciting. It will be a duel to the death, or just maybe an exciting afternoon. So come see that one. The other things we want to alert you on from our worship, we have our upcoming Ash Wednesday service. This is always a real powerful start for the Lenten season for us. And yeah, when I first came to Anona, I was so amazed at how many people came to Ash Wednesday. Because I got to confess, coming prior churches from here, it was never a big service. You know, people, it's Ash Wednesday, whatever. I'll get my ashes and go. But it's really neat to see y'all come and be a part of that journey as we seek that reflection and that ability to really look at ourselves and look at the life of Christ, especially in the passion moments, and how we connect to that in this journey with him. And so that's going to be on Wednesday, February 2nd, starting at 6:30, again in here. It'll be both communion and the imposition of ashes if you would like to receive those. February 22nd, yes, it's 22nd, February 20th. It's coming up quick this year, if you can believe it there. February 22nd, is that what I said? Oh, sorry. All right, February 22nd, 6:30 p.m. Holy Week, we also have something coming up we really want to invite you to. There's a special cantata this year. Nate's putting a lot of work into focusing on literally a Mass. Now, this is not a true traditional Catholic Mass, if you're Catholic or know the forms of the Catholic Mass, but it does actually incorporate many of those elements. And believe it or not, Methodists utilize different forms of the Mass in our own worship. And so he's done a great job of just taking different styles and flavors of music that represent, whether it's Glorias or Kyries or Credos, and mixing them together. And that's going to be presented on Thursday, April 6th, 6:30 p.m., followed by communion during Holy Week. So make sure you mark your calendars for that. Then, of course, we have our Easter sunrise services over at Serenity and Easter morning services here, which will be a big blowout, so don't miss those. And then last but not least, Sunday, April 30th, we got the Heralds of Harmony coming back to Anona. So if you like gospel-y, well, not even just gospel, but just barbershop music. They do an amazing job with high-energy barbershops. They actually compete nationally and have won, I believe, on a number of occasions. So they'll be coming here April 30th at 3 o'clock. This is a specific ticketed sales event. We will not be handling that. We are simply hosting them. So what that means is we will be sending you the links where you can go to get the tickets. They'll sell them at the door as well, I believe. But you do need to purchase a ticket to come to that event. So you'll be getting more information down the road, but mark your calendars for April 30th to see them. And that's just a few points in worship.
All right. Well, we're going to invite Miss Casey forward to share a few words with us as well. If you'll swap stools with her for that, it'd be great. She can sit down here with us. Everybody give Miss Casey the one clap. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. How are we doing? Little verbal communication. Okay, we're very tired. I'll make it quick then. We don't want to play. It's 7:04. We got the State of the Union in an hour. We gotta go. All right, so I get to talk about the life of the church is the kind of title of this slide, but the truth is that I'm only going to get to touch on a few pieces of the life of the church because I'm going to kind of speak from the departments that I get the joy and honor of helping out in. But you could ask any of our other fellow directors here at Anona. Jackie's in the room and could give such an incredible update on missions and our community partnerships and outreach and just the way that she's constantly connecting in the community and helping Anona to be known as a safe place to connect with and partner with. And that is a huge part of the church, as well as all of the different worship things. And Nate's doing his intergenerational choir. So there's so much more going on than what I'm going to share is the point in me saying that. But nonetheless, I have the microphone, so I'm going to give you the rundown that I have. So first off is family ministries. As you can see up there, we have some really fun pictures of our youth. The youth are the top 2 photos, and then our young adults, those are the bottom 2 photos. I'm in one of those photos with the young adults. I'm not a young adult anymore. My gray hair says I can't be. So just for that fun fact. So some exciting stuff with student ministry. All of our family ministry departments, like all of the rest of the departments at Anona, we really got hit hard during COVID. And I would say that really kids and youth really, really got hit hard because they had a harder time understanding and connecting over Zoom and things like that. You know, us adults kind of could hang in there a little bit, but it's harder for students. And so we really saw that negative impact on our attendance and our involvement, the overall morale of those ministries. But I'm really excited to say in both kids and youth and young adults really that all of our numbers have been going up. It's super encouraging. I don't believe that ministry is all about numbers. I don't like counting numbers. We just did year-end reports, and Elisa knows it's not my favorite thing. But nonetheless, it does show people getting excited and people connecting and people getting back together. And so I'm really excited to tell you that recently Megan had about 65 people she counted at youth group on a Sunday night. And that's huge. I know that for some of us, we've been here back in the heyday when student ministry was huge, but times are different now. It's just not like that anymore. And so for us to have 65 people there on a Sunday night really is something to celebrate. And I want to lift her up. She's not in the room tonight, but if you ever see her around campus, she just works tirelessly. She wears 1,000 different hats in that ministry, and it's with her and her team of small group leaders that they've really built that ministry back up. And so we're really excited about that. The top 2 photos from the other slide were them at Rock the Universe, which was just a couple weekends ago. So the students are traveling again. They're doing their trips. And those are such formative times for the kids to get to connect and make memories and bond and get an opportunity to grow in their faith. So just really exciting stuff there. With our young adult ministry, that is one of my favorite things to talk about because this ministry was birthed out of 2 small group leaders who signed up to be with their kids when they were in 6th grade, stayed with them all the way through when they graduated high school, and then realized that when they graduated, they weren't going to have a place to go. And so they decided to stick around. And that was 4 years ago. 5 years ago now, 2019. So, nope, that's 4 years ago. They don't make me do math in seminary. So they just stayed. It's volunteer small group leaders who signed up when these kids were 12 and decided that they just weren't going to let them go. And because of their commitment and dedication and end of the year reporting, they got to say that they were touching the lives of 39 young adults locally and across the country as they're in all different schools around the states. They keep in touch with them when they're away. They send them care packages. They coordinate huge get-togethers when they're all in town, and they still do bi-weekly Bible study. And to me, that's just, there's few things that will get me more excited than talking about them. So Malia K. Kahuna and Jeannie Joyner, praise be. So that's youth and young adults.
Actually, I'd also like to acknowledge our FAST class
Sure.
for the connection that they've done with the young adults to make it possible for them that every time they're here, they have
Yeah,
snacks or food
absolutely.
or whatever anytime they gather. And that's part of our emphasis on trying to get intergenerational.
Yeah.
And it has just been such a blessing for that ministry. Part of the beauty of what you're seeing is also that connection and also what you're bringing in terms of adult ministry, which I hope you also talk about.
Thank you.
Yes.
Because you told me to. So yes, amazing. Thank you to the Fast Crowd. I know there's many of you here tonight, and we really do appreciate all that you guys are doing. It doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated, so thank you. With kids, I want to also share that Bonnie's numbers are going up too. Recently, I went over there, and there were like 25 or 30 kids in Wesley Hall, which again, that's huge post-COVID. That's even huge before COVID, I want to acknowledge. So huge kudos to her there. She is just such a rock star. You'll see her baby Eloise around church all the time, and she is still just absolutely crushing it with ministry and making a safe place for our kids. So super excited there. I actually had one of our moms of some elementary schoolers approach me recently, and she said, I love this church because as soon as I get in the parking lot, my kids can't get out of the car fast enough. They want to be here so bad. And when I told Bonnie that story, she said, you know what? I told her the family. She said, you know what's funny is recently those kids on a Sunday morning came running into Wesley Hall without their mom. And we're like, where are your parents? They can't just drop you off. They have to sign you in. And the mom's running behind them saying, I'm coming, I'm coming. So literally that played out right in front of us. So we're really excited with our nursery. We can sometimes have 15 little ones in there, which is huge as well. So just please hear that for the younger generations, they are coming back. They are getting engaged. And also I want you to hear that that's kind of the sunshiny part, and that's the exciting celebratory part. And the reality is we need help to keep that going. So we need more people like the Fast Crowd to volunteer to be a part of things in any way you can. We need more help on Sunday mornings with our kids and little kids. We have oftentimes the same couple volunteers that rotate every single week in those ministries. And what we find is that that can only go on for so long until they get burnt out and they can't do it anymore. And that's not effective ministry. That's not good care for them as humans. They're people before they're volunteers, and we can't burn our people out. But we also don't have a lot of choice if it's only the same handful of people that are showing up on Sunday mornings or on Sunday nights. And so I just want to encourage you, or you if you're online, this isn't something you just have to hear about. You can be a part of this. I started out at Anona volunteering in kids ministry, and my 5- and 6-year-olds are now juniors and seniors in high school. And it's awesome. The peanut gallery has arrived, everybody. He couldn't take that he didn't have a microphone, so he had to somehow get attention. So just hear that there is a place for you, and this is an opportunity. This is a chance to be a part of the church. And also we need it. We want to be able to keep doing this stuff, and the hard reality is we just won't be able to. We were talking in family ministries today about having to, or staff or something, whatever meeting we were in today. We've been here for a long time, guys. About how we're really considering having to say no to certain really awesome, great things that we could do because we simply can't do it all by ourselves. And so just hear that if we want our church to get back booming and let it be before COVID, and if we want these pews to be filled, if we want people in the community to be a part of this, then we have to be the church. It can't be just a few of us. So that's family ministries, adult education that Richard wanted me to talk about. We are just so grateful that we've been able to, parents can't just come to a Bible study necessarily when they've got kids at home. And so we thought, well, rather than just do an adult Bible study and have the kids watch a movie, why don't we do something where every generation can be learning and growing at the same time? And that's happened twice now. And we're just so thrilled. We have tried so many things over the years, and not a lot of them work. And it's so nice when something works. And so if you have come out to one of those, or if you've been a part of that, thank you. And we hope that it has served you well. We hope it's given you space to connect with people that you might not normally. And if you haven't, we would love to invite you to do that. The next one starts on March 1st, and we'll go through Lent. And I think that's pretty much it. Oh, 8 people joined the church on Sunday too. So people are coming back. They are, one clap for them. Am I done now? Is this like the Oscars music? What if I don't want to be done? I was going to compliment you, but I don't have to if you want me to go. I was just going to say that everybody that comes in tells me all the time how welcoming everybody is here and how they just feel accepted and a part of it. And I just want to say thank you because you don't always get to hear those things, but I do because people tell me them when they're joining the church. And so I just want you to hear that I am grateful for you. And a lot of other people are too. So thank you.
Thank you, Miss Casey. And next coming up is Miss Sandy O'Brien to tell us a little bit about our Anona Child Development Center and what's going on over there. Please feel free to take a chair.
It is my honor to be able to represent the Anona Child Development Center. All is well, alive, and moving forward, and we have lots of happy kiddos over there and just many, many things going on. They are celebrating this year their 50th anniversary. We have been in continuous programs since 1972, and so the children are just immersed in fun activities all year long for celebrating how long the church has been supporting this ministry here at Anona. I would like to personally thank each of you who may have made a contribution at the Christmas Giving Tree to our Sally Berthy Scholarship Fund. We love Sally Berthy, and we love her the fund that's named for her. These times are tough for lots of parents, and many of us know that. And so it's just such a blessing when a hardship comes to a family to be able to call upon that fund for us to be able to assist. And also the Jack and Sharon Stevenson fund that we use for curriculum and staff development, and that has really been a blessing too, to keep our staff up to speed and up to the latest training. So thank you to any of you who may have contributed to that. It means the world to us, and thank you. I would like to say that we are now in the middle of registering for next school year. We're in pre-registration now. And some of our classes are already completely full with a waiting list. So our community is aware of us, is supporting us, is so pleased with what the staff and Marion are doing there for the children of our community, and they are coming. She is just constantly having someone come in to do a walkabout and to see our program. So we are immersed in our conscious discipline, and that is going very well. And I just can't say enough of good things to represent the ACDC, and they're just working so hard. And it's just paying off in so many ways. We're just seeing beautifully happy, developing children over there in both our preschool program and our after-school care program. So thank you for everything that you do to support this program, and we hope it just goes on for many, many years. It's a real wonderful asset to our ministry here at Anona.
It absolutely
Thank you.
is. For Sandy, Marion, doggone it, you got more than a one clap. All right.
Yes, if we had more space, we could have many, many more children, I would like to say. But right now we have close to 80 children in our preschool program, and that would be ages 1 through the VPK program, the 4-year-old program. And then we have, I think it's 26 children who are in the after-school program. Our bus goes and picks up at several elementary schools, and then the children are here until up to 6 o'clock when their parents come and pick them up. We have before and after school care for that. So close to 80 in one program and 25-ish, 26 in the other program.
So we run two separate budgets. We're one organization, so the church is one entity. So their employees are our employees, whatnot. But they run their own separate budget. So Lisa actually tracks them as a separate thing. And so they have their own reserves that was separate during COVID. When they were going through that, they had their reserves, which thankfully their leadership had made sure that they were prepared for that moment when it hit. You think worst case scenario, that was probably amongst the worst case scenarios that we would ever face. Please. And they got through it as well. And they had a time where they were actually shut down. Okay, we were able to keep going at least online. There was a period of time where our preschool shut down, no income, and we kept every single one of their employees, thanks to their fiscal management and management overall, they kept it all going all the way through. Oh, they're coming out a little bit ahead. Yes. Yeah, they're nonprofit. You're trying to keep close into that range, if you follow, so they're not a profit business.
Yeah. We're not trying to make money, we're trying to serve children, but we also want to remain solvent and fiscally responsible, which we have done. Marion is sitting in the back, I believe, and we just owe all kinds of gratitude to her. She runs a wonderful program and works tirelessly. I cannot tell you the number of hours that she puts in every week for this program. It is my joy to be involved because we have to work with the ACDC. We have a board, and some of our board members are here tonight as well. And I chair the board for the church to work with ACDC, and that's why I'm up here speaking to you. But Marion is the hard worker back there. Thank you, Marion. We love you.
And thank you, Miss Sandy. All right, this has been a lot of the best of the times. This is now where we transition a little bit to some of the worst of the times. So I'd like everybody to just take a breath with me. Ready? All right, because we're going to go through some difficult stuff that is new to everybody here. All right, so this is not something that you've heard before. I'm going to stand up and walk while I talk because that's going to help me. In 2006, we adopted or implemented what's called a plan adoption agreement with WestPath, which is the provider for us in terms of our retirement program. All right, so if you think of 401k type things, that is what this is. It's a retirement plan. Thank you. We obviously do this. We want to encourage our staff to be able to save money towards their retirement. They're not just depending on Social Security as they're moving forward. And what we do is we contribute 5% towards those fundings. All right, so if you get employed with us, you're going to get 5% towards your retirement plan moving forward. The problem is, during the midst of COVID, there was a moment where one of our employees moved from full-time to part-time. And she was sitting down with Elisa and I and made a comment of, hey, what will happen with my pension? I said, Elisa, do me a favor, retirement, thank you. Retirement. It's not a pension. I keep saying pension. That's why I'm getting the retirement. So it's a retirement plan. Elisa, would you mind checking out, just find out for sure, as we're making this transition? She called up WestPath, and when she called up WestPath, they said, well, yeah, because your plan covers anybody from 1,040 hours and up. So annually, if you work 1,040 hours or more per year, that person is eligible. So as long as this person is getting 1,040 hours or more, you're good. As soon as we heard that, we went, what? Because our understanding was that it was for full-time employees at 40 hours. And so what we have discovered is that since 2006, anybody not working full-time, so 1,040 hours or more, was supposed to be getting that 5%. So do you hear the breathe-in moment? This is since 2006. I'm going to sort of scroll down through my notes, just want to make sure I stay on my track. At Discovery, as soon as we found that out, we pulled in Kevin, who is our finance chair, and at the time we also had Karen Coltis, was our co-finance chair at the time, pulled them in, had a discussion with them that then moved to each one of our committees and groups. So part of what they're representing up here is they are informed, and if you have questions for them, they're pretty much almost as informed as I am. Elisa and I have been running lead on this in terms of communications. But as soon as we found that discovery, we took it to finance chair, went to our directors, leadership teams, so staff, parish, finance, trustees. What I want to do is lift up each one of those teams. In the midst of that, I'm making a phone call to Westpath. And as we call up Westpath, they said, you're not the first church to have this problem. And then I found out the Florida Conference referred me to a church over in Orlando that's a large church that just went through this. Some people, when they call us, hang up the phone and pretend as if it's not happening. And then we don't hear from them again. What I loved about our leadership, their instant response was, we need to do what we signed up to do back in 2006. All right, so back in 2006, I want to point out Elisa was not here at that time in terms of following through on things. And as you get trained in, as you get brought in, you're just following the processes that you get as you're moving along from the person that was before you and before you and before you. We proceeded from that time to contact lawyers. All right, so we talked to our leadership. We decided before we go much further, we want to talk to a lawyer that specializes in this area. And so we got on, got a little bit of advisory stuff. We wanted that so that when I would call the conference, I'd be able to understand already, sort of thinking the thought process and have a good legal understanding of what we're facing as we talk to the conference. Then I called the conference to let them know, and I've let our district superintendent know. The conference has stepped in through conference insurance to be able to provide lawyers now for us. Right, so there's now lawyers that are involved in this to help us walk through crossing the T's and dotting the I's of trying to get back through all the way back to 2006 when this plan adoption agreement was adopted and implemented to say we've got to now look at every single employee since 2006 and say how many hours did they work? Was it 1,040 or more, 1,040 or less? When did they work? So did they work from 2005 to 2006? Did they work from 2005 to 2010? Did they work from 2008 to 2023? You have to look at each one of those. So Lisa has been having to go through and look at every single year of employment for Anona United Methodist Church with every single person that worked here. The plan adoption agreement that was adopted back in 2006 had some weird check marks on it from my perspective when you think of it from a leadership, but like you're signing this paperwork. It had a 0 vesting time. All right, so from day one you were fully vested in the program. It had no age limit, so a 16-year-old could be eligible for it. So there was no plan for 20% this year, 20% this year, 20% this year, ongoing. Over 5 years you build toward your 100% vesting. It was instant on. And so that's another detail that we're having to look at and say, literally, if you worked here for a day, in essence, you could be eligible. If you were going to, obviously that wouldn't work because they didn't get 1,040 hours. But if you just think of the time frames, she's having to go through and look at each one of those. Want to add another weird variable to this? Some of those people aren't alive today. Right? So we're having it, and we don't know how to contact them or anything like that. And that's where the lawyers come in, is to help us walk through and make sure that we're getting all of that information correct as we move forward. Moving forward from this point, Elisa has finished a portion of that research. And the portion that she's finished is all of those hours to get to a point and say, what's the baseline number? And this is why I'm asking you to take the breath. All right? Because she's gone through and looked at every one of those employees. If you worked less than 1,040 hours, you still should have been informed that you were eligible to participate in the plan. So even they get a percent. So we pay 5% for everybody else, but the IRS says you have to pay 1% for these people. The number is over $400,000. That number does not include the earnings. All right, the earnings. So if you think of, in essence, if you thought sort of like the S&P, that's what I'm looking for. I was trying to think of SPR, and that's not it. If you thought of like the S&P, that's probably like the general fund you would look at and say, where has it gone from 2005 to now, and therefore what does that do to that number? And it varies with each person because the closer you are to this date, so if you got hired in 2019 to now, that's not going to be the same impact as if you were literally employed here since the time of 2006 till now. Tracking with me? Okay? So what we've done at this point, besides all of that, is January 1st, 2023, we implemented a new plan adoption agreement. So moving forward, anybody that gets hired from this point forward, the 1,040 thing is normal, all right? So that's still going to happen. 1,040 hours is pretty much industry standard across any place that you work, apparently. We now know that. So that's still in there. We've now made it, though, where you have a 90-day probation before you would even be eligible for said plan, and that there's a vesting plan for it so that if they come in, it's the 5-year, 20% per year in order to be able to get vested to 100%. So those are some of the changes that we implemented in the midst of that. That had to go through a process, guys. That goes through all 3 committees. So staff parish, this is Susan. She is our staff parish chair. Staff parish has to say, hey, we would like this benefit for our employees, okay? So I'm saying this both from the current perspective now and what I assume would have happened back in 2006. I don't have the meeting notes from 2006. I wasn't there, and I don't have the meeting notes. We don't know how this happened, okay? So staff parish first comes and says we would like this benefit, or in this case, now in 2023, we would like to have this changed to what I just described, the 20% per year, the 90-day probation. They make that recommendation. I then take it over to finance and say, finance, are you willing to finance that 5% plan for our staff? And we walk through that with them. They have a conversation. They take a vote. They said, yes, effective 2023, we'll make those changes moving forward. Once again, I would assume this happened back in 2006. That would then go to our trustees representative today. This is Debbie Reinhardt. Trustees is the legal arm of the church, so they have to sign off on the document. Okay? That's the process that I would assume went through back then, but I've got no meeting notes from back then to be able to find out and say what happened. So that's the challenge. And the reality is, guys, no matter what happened now back then, my concern is moving forward and how do we handle this going out. Yes, sir. What do you mean by the $400,000? Correct. So yeah, we're gonna have to cover the money. So
In that $2 million? No. So this is more than $2,400,000.
No. This isn't part of the budget.
It's already part of the budget. Is what I'm asking.
This is money that should have been getting paid year by year by year through the budget.
Somebody made me. That's immaterial. Is it covered in the budget or not?
We're going to have to find the money in order to be able to pay this balance. No, this wasn't anticipated to be in the budget, right? Because we didn't know about it, right? So,
Well, for going forward, all this retirement, is it part of the...
if you're talking about the part moving forward, yes. Making up for all the stuff in the past is not in the budget. If that's the question you're asking, yes.
You actually got a 1 year short.
It's $400,000, right? Plus earnings. I'm probably going to at least double the number, right? In my head, I don't know we don't know the number yet because that's got to be turned into Westpath for them to be able to now go through with the number she gives them. They'll go through, apply a formula to each employee based on the time frames that they were employed and say, for that employee, this much money. For this employee, that much money. For this employee, that much money. And they will send us a bill that will have a total that will be due in that moment. So once they have that, they'll say, this is how much is due, send that to us. And then the money will be put into, because it can't go straight to an employee. It can't go straight, so let's say you look like you're, 28 years old, right? So you're 28 years old. If I hand you that money right now, you get taxed on it and you get penalized on it because it's supposed to be retirement money, okay? It's got to go straight into, if any of you have ever done a transfer of like a 401k, you leave an employer and you go to another employee, you transfer it to, you don't want it to touch you. That's in essence the point that's being made here. So the money's going to go to Westpath. They will now have an account for that employee to say, here's your money, and you choose how to invest it moving forward, but that's their money to be able to invest. Okay, I'm going to push pause for a second, just make sure everybody's tracking with me because it gets more confusing the more further I go into it. All right, questions? Yeah. The records in terms of the employees. So for every employee that we had signed up, the church is responsible for that record keeping. It gets sent to, so Lisa sends a check every month, I think we're doing now. Every once per month, a check goes out for each employee that is eligible. That gets sent to Westpath. It's now in that account for the employee to be able to decide how it gets managed. Does that answer that question? What that says is Westpath wasn't responsible. Correct. Correct. Great question, Kurt. So there's a thing called ERISA, and this is what I'm saying, it can get more complicated. There's a thing called ERISA that if we were a nonprofit, not a church, we would be subject to a thing called ERISA. And that ERISA, is it nonprofits and businesses, right?
Yeah, normal companies.
Thank you. So normal companies. That was his words, by the way. Normal companies would be under what's called ERISA, E-R-I-S-A, that would say every year you have to turn in a form to make sure you're doing your thing. Apparently, churches don't have to do that. So Westpath doesn't send you a thing saying, hey, make sure you're filling out your ERISA form to make sure that you're accurate on your numbers. Okay, that's a difference between business and nonprofit/church. Yes, sir. Our books are audited, so we did ask our auditor that very question, so thank you for asking that. It was not caught. It was not caught. So not all Methodist churches have a pension plan, a retirement plan, thank you. Retirement plan. Anytime I say pension plan, everybody just say, Richard, it's retirement. You want to practice? 1, 2, 3. Retirement. Thank you, okay? So it's retirement plan. Not every church has one, and that was not one of the boxes that apparently he went through in order to take care of it in the audit. Yes, for at least, I don't know, I can't go back to 2006 and say that. I know for quite a while it's been the same auditor. I have a question behind me.
Well, no, I just wanted to say that maybe to show that we've put some safeguards in place.
Well, I'll repeat it for you.
Yeah, that we've put some safeguards in place. Hi, I'm Susan Garcia-Nikolov. I'm the SPRC chair. So just to piggyback on some of the things that Richard said and the questions that have come up, just so you know, because when this came to our attention, we have put safeguards in place so this does not happen again. Not just the changing of the plan, but also forms have been developed that will be presented to employees, right of refusal, and a review of the plan every year with SPRC. So this does not happen again. Just wanted to state that.
Thank you for that. Because, go ahead, in case anybody else needs to share. Yeah.
Okay, so to the point of why this maybe wasn't caught by the auditor would have checked that what we said was submitted actually was submitted. The gap in this was we didn't know that we should be contributing for these people. The auditor wouldn't have looked at the adoption agreement that was established back in 2006. So this was a gap that nobody knew that these people should have been covered. So it wasn't like an accounting error where you didn't carry the one. So if that clears up that part.
That is very helpful. Thank you.
So you're saying the auditor has no responsibility under this because they weren't asked to audit the plan?
You want to explain it's not a full audit?
Yeah, so again, Richard said under ERISA rules, which that's a government agency, a regular business would submit something called a 5500 to be able to say, we contributed $10,000 for retirement plans. I want my $10,000 tax deduction. As a church, we didn't have to do that. So there was nothing to audit because there was no required forms.
Okay, well, you got a deficit. How are you going to make it up? So much.
I'm going to get to that, but I want to make sure that these questions are answered. I will get to that.
Westpath, they have to have some culpability to this whole program. Somebody came to you or to the church to sell themselves, their company. Why aren't they held some type of responsibility?
Another great question. So we actually hired a separate lawyer. This has been my life, guys. And this has been going on for about 8 months now, for us to try and get through every little crossing the T, dotting the I loophole, make sure communication's happening, rolling it out to staff. When does that happen? That's been somewhat recently. I want to give credit. Listen to this. Do you hear how long I said this has been going on? All right? So this is that we've been trying to get all of this information together to make sure that we're following the right track as we move. All right? And it stayed quiet. Every one of our teams, I asked for a cone of silence. I said, we will be transparent, but I want to be transparent when we have all the information so I can answer your questions. In every one of those teams, the leadership of this church and the integrity of these people is amazing. When I rolled it out to our staff, I went to our directors first, asked them to keep it as a cone of silence. I've spoken now all the way down to every employee, down to 16-year-olds. All right, and it has stayed silent. For me, what an amazing gift in terms of who this church is and your leadership, whether it's part-time staff up to full-time staff or your volunteer leadership has been amazing. The rollout for us to get to the place of saying, I can now stand before you with the answers I can give you was the key for that. And I feel like I got off track in addressing that question. Was there a question in the midst of that I was supposed to be answering? This question, thank you, the Westpath question. So we hired another lawyer, all right? So we hired a lawyer before we talked to the conference. The conference then hired a lawyer, which, by the way, ended up happening to be the same lawyer over here, so we had to discontinue relationship with this lawyer. We looked for the best one, literally. We went out looking and said, who's the best one? We consulted with some people from within the leadership that said, hey, I'll find that lawyer. They found that lawyer, and then the conference ended up assigning us that lawyer. So now I've got this lawyer. Then, because this lawyer is now hired by the conference, leadership came up with the idea of saying we should probably make sure that they're actually representing Anona, not just the conference, all right? So we hired another lawyer to look at the paperwork from Westpath for now the second or third time in terms of lawyer conversations that I've had, or Lisa has had. And basically they circled back around to say, they've covered themselves. The responsibility is on us to report the numbers. Just sort of getting back to what Kevin was talking about. The responsibility is on us that once you've implemented this plan, that you are submitting the correct information, that if a person is eligible, they are getting that information turned in. So, multiple lawyers, culpability, Westpath.
There must have been a planned document that had this in it that we had in the beginning. We talked about that.
That's exactly what, so that's going way back.
A law that's existed forever. Anybody who knows anything about benefits knows that 1040 hours is a requirement. And that's universal, I think. So that's why to understand, it seems there's some culpability somewhere that somebody didn't bring it up for us to know that. I know you meant
I don't think it's a question whether they didn't bring it up. We'd signed the paper saying we did know it back in 2006. Jack does not have a recollection of what happened in this process. For the church? Okay, are we ready for that question to talk about the moving forward? Where we're at now, we don't, so here's what I put down. What we don't know is who or how, and we don't know the total impact. So once we get the total impact and we get to the place where Elisa has sent the information off to Westpath that's gone through the lawyers, right, to make sure that we did everything correct, it goes off to Westpath. They determine the number, and that check will be due. We don't know the number yet. So I can't tell you what the number is in order for us to say, we now have to do this with that. Now, let me circle back. Remember all the good news over here? Remember all that stuff at the beginning? Okay. Say it again. It's gone, okay? In the sense of we have funds, we have a reserve, that this is not going to sink Anona. And that's one of the beauties, once again, of your leadership getting to the place of saying, we're going to have strong reserves. The impact of this is painful. I am not saying it is not painful. What I'm saying is, it ain't slowing us down. We're going to keep moving forward. It's going to impact our reserves. We've got the funds coming in that we talked about that can help in other ways for us to be able to address things. There's a possibility of us doing not a loan, a line of credit, thank you, which I thought was a great idea. It came out of one of our staff parish chairperson was like, instead of doing a loan, do a line of credit, and then you're not paying interest on the full amount. It's if we need it, we could write a check for that amount. It might only be a smaller amount when it comes time, and we're not paying on the whole thing. And in essence, the line of credit could become the reserve if we were to have to wipe out the reserve until we can get to such a place that the reserve can be rebuilt. So,
$260,000 in your reserve.
no, we have, if you take the 260, that was the surplus for this year alone.
You got a $400,000 bill at least, so you can pay half the bill.
Our reserves are over $1 million.
Yeah, and it's not quite that simple, but you're getting the gist of the idea, because it's the 400 plus whatever the earnings are, which I'm saying is probably going to be at least double. So the 264 surplus will help put a dent in it. So you're correct. We also have reserves that will probably wipe it out to where it's not wipe out the reserves, but it'll wipe out the balance that we probably owe to Westpath, i.e. to all of those employees, to make it right. The way I've been describing this, before I worked here, I went here, right? All right, so my kids grew up in this church, and they grew up in that preschool that Sandy just talked about. And they had a teacher named Donna Round. Donna Round. And Donna Round has been here since my kids were not even here, okay? So she's here in 2006. And every time I think, we signed off in 2006 as a church saying we would make sure that this was done for these people. And it hasn't been done. And I love that I'm able to look in the eyes of Donna Round and say, this is a church of integrity. There's a possibility we could have made this shorter, we could have hung up the phone, pretend like it didn't exist, and implement a new plan adoption agreement and move forward. The integrity of your leadership said, no, we know this is going to be painful, but we also know what is right. And what do you do as a follower of Jesus Christ, or as the body of Christ called his church? You do the right thing, even if it hurts. That doesn't mean we have not tried to talk to the lawyers and say, culpability, where does this fit? Where does this lie? Was it us? All those questions have been asked with multiple lawyers now. Yes? Yeah, no, questions, I'm wide open. They didn't know they were allowed to get a report. That's the whole issue. So they never got a penny of contribution to an account that they never knew they were supposed to even have an account. Full-time's covered. That's a great question. Full-time is covered. Now, it's been like when I said earlier, the 40 hours or more, that's what we've been doing. The thing that's not covered is anything below that. You tracking with me? You still look confused?
Richard, can I give you an example?
Yeah.
Think about this as somebody who worked part-time as an assistant in the preschool. They worked that, 1,040 hours. They never knew, they were never presented with the option to contribute to a retirement plan. The church has owed them for any of those years that they worked here. So they never got a statement because they never had an account. They never
Correct.
knew that they should have
Correct.
had an account.
Because the plan was never rolled out in the way that it was signed off on in 2006. They wouldn't know that they had, so let's say I was working 25 hours a week at Anona since 2006, but I never knew I had a plan. I'm not even going to ask the question. I didn't think I was eligible. You follow? Did I see another hand? If they've been 40 hours, they've been covered. That was the way the plan was implemented back in 2006. If you were a full-time staff person, you got it. You got the form, and so they have an account. I have an account, right? So it's there. But if you're less than full-time, that's been the gap. Yes?
Richard, if I understand correctly, wasn't it a person, a full-time person on your staff who was going down to a part-time level
Yeah, that was part of my opening. Yeah. Yes, correct. That raised, I literally just turned to Elisa and said, hey, let's check that out. That was it. Yes. Yes. Yeah, Kurt.
You talked to Lisa twice and said you got an actuarial estimate, Westpac or anybody what the total cost will be?
Not yet. That's all the information that's going to have to be sent to them. They can't. They don't have they don't have the information. So they don't know the number of employees, the hours they work. They don't know any of that other than employees that we've submitted to them because they did work here at 40 hours. Correct. Yep. Yep. Yes. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, no, sorry, we do have a record. We know everybody who has worked
Yep.
here since 2006. Yes.
We do.
Yes.
Correct. That's what Elisa's been looking at that I was saying. She's going through since 2006. Every employee, how long did they work? How many hours did they work? Did they qualify? Every piece of that.
So
She's been busy with this. And on top of that, she just did year-end paperwork. Everybody give Elisa one clap. 1, 2, 3. Teresa, did you have your hand up a second ago? Okay, thank you. Okay.
You also have a Social Security shortfall?
No.
You didn't pay these people?
No, they were
they're
paid.
paid. The money is just not being paid into their retirement account. That's different than Social Security. Anybody who's employed here is getting, 7.65%, I think is the number. We put in 7.65%. They put in 7.65%. That's their Social Security number. That is all done. Thank you. She said all taxes have been correct.
2006, there was no errors and omissions insurance? Errors and omissions insurance. Errors and omissions insurance.
No. Was there an errors and omissions insurance?
That's what you contacted.
The conference about, yeah. Was to see what coverage there might be available. The only coverage we have is the coverage that they're paying for the lawyers. Wasn't that fun? I'm going to circle back, guys. This could sink a ship. And it could sink a big ship like Anona. It is not. And it's because of the leadership that you have before you now that has gotten us to a place where even something as big as this, as difficult as this, we're going to keep moving forward. We're moving forward in powerful ways. Everything you heard from Casey talking about the new members, the children's ministry, the youth ministry, the attendance. We can see attendance is tracking up, giving is tracking up. We are moving forward. This is a pain in the rear. All right? It's messed up with some of my plans. Would you mind if I move on? Go ahead, Chet. Yeah.
I heard this, Westpac said you're not the only one.
Correct.
There seems to be some burden or responsibility of the conference to be able to get that information out.
So you were labeling what I'm feeling when they said that to me was, why don't you just send out a letter to every church that says, hey, just in case, make sure you're doing this for 1,040 hours or more. And is there a fear? There might be, right? Because if they have a bunch of churches that are doing this and you have to hit this all at once, I don't know the answer, Chad. I don't know the answer, but I felt the same thing you're articulating there of why, just send me, if you just sent a letter annually, not an ERISA form, just send a letter that says, hey, make sure, reminder type of deal. You send me a thing for everything else. I got more forms to fill out than a accountant, well, you're not an accountant, financial planner, right? There's all kinds of forms we have to fill out. One more sheet of paper that says, check. Make sure you did this. Say that again.
This is a plan that's approved by the Internal Revenue Service. It has to be. It's required. We had a plan document that spelled this out in the plan document, and somehow we missed the plan document. And that's where the responsibility was. You know, I've managed benefits for years and years and years on these plan documents, and they're there. I hate to admit, but I did the same thing when I was in the corporate world. We had the same kind of problem. We had to go get actuaries to recalculate everything because somebody made a mistake.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you. And thank you for the clarification.
As an employee, I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Let me say that too. So if you think of the faces when I sat down with employees to tell the ones that are under the full time, as hard as this is for me, that was oppositely beautiful. And the cool thing was the Trudies of the world were saying, in essence, thank you for the integrity to do this and do the right thing. I can't not double negative on purpose. I can't not do this. If we signed on something saying we would do this, I can't not go through and say we're going to make it right. As painful as it is. Yeah, Chet. I would love to say, I don't think I deserve zero credit, because the only real reason, unlike Kurt, who said I should know 1,040 hours, I did not. And I don't come from just the church world. I didn't know this from when I was working at Shepherd's, right? I don't remember it being 1,040 hours. All benefits were typically full-time. That's what I remember. So I don't want credit for squat. We found this out by accident. If anything, the credit goes to the leadership to say, this is who we are. We had a wonderful conversation about that. This is the church, which you've now heard multiple times, of how we're moving forward, and we value doing the right thing, even if it's the hard thing.
What's the UMC country obligation, if any?
The United Methodist Church.
The church says, well, we can't pay it. Are they going to step in and do the right thing, or are they hire a lawyer and say we're not obligated?
From my perspective, I'm going to circle back to what Kurt said. We signed the document saying that we would do it, and we didn't. The responsibility is ours.
What about churches that can't afford it?
I don't know that circumstance. They'd have to do something in order to get by. I don't know the answer, because we're not in that position, because we didn't allow ourselves to be in that position. I don't agree with that.
Was an insurance agent involved in that transaction and this transaction?
Westpath, so it's not insurance.
Pay a commission to an agent?
No.
You're sure?
It's Westpath is our provider, so it's not insurance.
All right.
It's a retirement provider.
But you have to be licensed to sell that. I guarantee, if there was an agent involved, he had error and omission insurance.
So Westpath is kind of given to the church by the conference. So it's not like we shopped around to like a Fidelity or Vanguard, or it was sold to us by that. We didn't get to choose. So
It goes through the Methodist Church. I'll circle back to whoever's talking about national. It's Methodist Church National. This is the provider for the United Methodist Church.
you probably could go 17 layers down the line.
If you
of
decide to
sales.
implement it in your church.
Somebody made money selling overall church.
Oh, somewhere, I'm sure. Westpath. You probably somehow to circle into that. We ready to move to the next thing yet? All right. And if guys, my door remains open. I will show you any figures. I will answer any question that I can answer. Right? And I don't mean can as in I'm not allowed to talk about something. I'm talking about intelligence. What am I aware of that I'm able to answer? You would get from me. So whatever I've been informed, I would inform you. It's not that anybody's causing me or saying, Richard, you can't share this, you can't share this. Nobody is saying that. I will be transparent, okay? So if you need to sit down and talk with me, I am available to have that conversation. Quick update on the denomination. I had a meeting with our bishop, our new bishop, Bishop Berlin. He pulled together the top 30 churches in the conference and just did a listening session. But in the midst of that, obviously talked about what the Methodist Church is going through in terms of the division, not in terms of saying anything about the details other than there's going to be 3 special annual conferences this year. And those 3 special annual conferences are to allow churches that want to leave the Methodist Church to leave. All right, so if they're deciding that they want to do that, you still have to cross your T's and dot your I's, but you walk through the process, and there'll be 3 separate annual conferences happening over 2023 for people to be able to do that, so that the annual conference that is happening normally in June happens with a focus on where are we going as a church. So you can focus more on the mission of the church at those 3, or at that one, and allow those other moments to happen over here. Expecting about a 25% loss is what he said in terms of the church. So about 25% of Methodist churches they're expecting will be leaving the Methodist Church to go, whether it's to the global Methodist Church or to whatever they choose, that's up to them to decide. But about 25% will be leaving in our conference. That's not talking about nationally. I don't know what nationally it is, but for our conference, they're anticipating about a 25%. They also anticipate about a 25% hit to, in essence, the apportionments, the funding for the conference itself. You have also reduced costs as a result. I think we're going to probably see a little bit more expense moving forward coming through the conference, but they are working to downsize. We don't have a lot of information past that at this point, but I just want to let you know what they're anticipating happening with the Methodist Church. So leadership is hoping that we would just continue to be a Methodist church moving forward. So I'm hoping not. I really am. So I'm hoping that if we get to vote, we end up with winners and losers. There was a church that they thought was going to leave, so they got a new pastor, and a group said, let's try and get this vote thing going on because we're going to leave. And it turned out that this group lost 60-40 in that vote. Boom. All right, and you end up with a bunch of anger. I will continue to articulate what I keep hoping for Anona to be, and that is the big umbrella church. And it's very difficult. Casey and I were just talking about this the other day. It is so hard, guys. It is hard when you are walking a route that says, we believe differently. All right? We have different beliefs, in this case, about sexuality. We're doing the course right now, The Seeing Gray in a World of Black and White, and there's probably about 50 people that are taking that. And it's been nice because it's a mix of people from the cross-section that is Anona. And that's what I want to see. I want to see us being able to walk together.
Sometimes it's just not clear where you stand. I think people really want to know where you stand. And can you relate that to membership? How many people do you think have left the church because we haven't taken a strong stand one way or the other?
From each side, so back when, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago that I did the first sermon. No, when I did the first sermon. So as I was getting ready to come in to become the senior pastor of Anona, I felt it was very important for you all to know where I stood. And I preached a sermon that I went through and said, I'm about to tell you where I stand after preaching this sermon. I'm no different when I finish this statement than I was before. And so if you saw me as a safe place before, my hope and my prayer would be you would still see me as a safe place after I say where I stand on this issue, okay? And I said, I am a traditionalist, okay? Jeremy ended up coming up next week, or Jack, I can't remember what the sequence was, and did their sermon and said, I'm a progressive. Jack came up and said, I'm a progressive, okay? For me, that's a beautiful thing. that we're able as leaders, and now it's the two of us, right, to be able to lead together and hopefully provide the example of what we can be, who we can be, and how we can be. And is it going to be hard at times? Yes. One of the things I love about the Seeing Gray, this past week we were talking about, was it abortion? Abortion. All right. Now, if we'd had the same circumstance back when Roe v. Wade was happening, that would have been the issue and the thing that would have been potential for driving us apart from one another and saying, if you don't believe like me, I leave. And it didn't happen back then. You could take the death penalty. You can take multiple things and say there's so many things that can put the wedge between us in terms of our faithfulness to Jesus Christ, to God, to the Holy Spirit that's within us, that we're all seeking to walk that walk. Do we believe that? Do we? Will you say that with your hands? Do you believe that? Right? You know, if that's the reality, my approach has become the language of the communion table. Right? What do I say whenever we do communion? If you are seeking a relationship with Jesus Christ, if you are doing that, if you're seeking a relationship with Jesus Christ, this table is open to you. I want that to be for Anona. If you're seeking a relationship with Jesus Christ, it doesn't mean you're all put together, that you have every single right belief, and this is the way to be, and that's the only way to be. The reality is we're wrong. Every one of us is wrong. Every one of us. Do you want to say it with me? Would you? Every one of us is wrong. That's why you need a person named Jesus Christ, right? If you think you're right on everything, you're wrong, right? If you're married, hello, right? Come on. You know, I keep trying to tell Linda, but I want us to be able to walk that. I want to walk the married life. I want to walk the communion table life. I want us to be able to do that. And Jesus didn't call for no vote. Jesus said, follow me. If you're seeking a relationship with Jesus Christ, come to Anona. And there will be a place for you, at least as long as I am here. Amen. Yeah. Yes. So the church council, this is David, who opened up our meeting. The church council can decide whether or not to take a vote. And this is under current language, okay? So there was a special paragraph, don't ask me the paragraph number, it's like 553 or something like that, that allows churches to leave a little bit more easily right now. And the church council could take a vote that says we want to take a vote, and then they could say what the percentage is. And if I'm recalling correctly, it was either a simple majority or a 66%, don't hold me to that type of majority. They could set what the number would be in order to be able to leave the Methodist Church or decide to stay.
Any more bad news?
Come here, man. Come here.
Negative.
Love you. Love you.
Well, you said you had more.
No, that's it for the, are you ready for some now the stuff of what I want to see and what I hope to see moving forward? All right, because you asked a great question. I'm going to answer your question from about an hour ago. Skip over 2022 in review. We'll go to the next slide, guys. Basically, 2022 in review was the 150th anniversary. Was it not awesome? Was that worship service not incredible? Was building the playground not incredible? Seeing the kids that are out there, and now what you're starting to see. We had a family call up, and I can't remember if I talked about this in announcements. We had a family call up and say, hey, could we do a birthday party there? And we're like, oh, we didn't have that thought. And so now we're putting picnic tables out there, and they'll be able to call the church. And how cool. They're not associated with our church, but they called up to say, could I do that? And I saw them setting up their tables on Saturday to be able to have that out there. There's about, I don't know, 12 or 13 people out there doing that. 2022 was awesome, but what I want to focus on is 151, year 151. Go ahead and throw that back up on the screen. One of our emphases for our staff and for our leadership is focusing on families. We've got to be able to get connected to what Casey was talking about in terms of reaching the next generation and providing a place for them to grow up in Christ Church and get to wrestle with all the same things that we do. And the reality is we have a preschool building that is not up to standards for literally licensing today. So way back during COVID, all I said was, imagine if there was a playground out here that was a community playground, that people were able to come out and have their kids out here, and that we could have kids after worship, say once a month, go out there, and we have grills set up and events and things centered around this area of the church that's focused on children and their families. And I got $500,000 from somebody to build that. That's like phase 1 in my head. Phase 2 has been, and it's actually been for quite a while, what do we do in order to honor the work that our Anona Child Development Center is doing? And how do we use that building for more than just Anona Child Development Center? How do we get it to where it's a place that Sunday mornings is a place for kids? How can we make it where that space would be available for adults if we needed adults? And so, a next dream. The next dream is for us to build a little bit more into providing that type of space. And if you could imagine this building, so we already have some drawings done. If you look at this, the map part over there, the lower part, so this picture on the lowest part for those of you who are online, that one. Oh, thank you, Jonathan. This is the side of Wesley Hall that faces to the north. Okay, so if you know where the playground is on that side, the licensed care playground over there. On the back side of that, the lower whiter colored box would be a new preschool office. And you'll see a corridor in between, and that corridor would be a fenced-in ability for them to be able to provide security for students that are inside of that space. And so they would get dropped off there where the car is, and they walk in and they can go to their classrooms. And there's 3 classrooms lined up along that back side, so that would be way back along the back side of the sanctuary, sort of back up against where the lake is, retention pond. Along that side where the fencing is of the playground now. The thought behind that was, how do we get to a place where we're starting to literally build a barricade for those kids to make sure that they are safe? That's not just a chain link fence. And so if you have buildings, that's a lot safer for those kids that are in the playground, because one of the things that we get every once in a while, Suncoast Hospital up the street, which is now, what's it called? Largo Med. It's a Largo Med hospital, HCA. Hospital has a psych ward. And sometimes people get released, and what they do is they walk up the street this way, and they come here. And they'll be either coming along that fence, they come in the building. It's not, please do not hear me say anything against anybody with mental illness or difficulties they're facing. I'm merely trying to think of it from the safety of a child perspective. So the more we can start to get this framed off, the safer they will become moving forward. So you got 3 classrooms along that side. The bigger building is the other space that Sandy was talking about, and that would be for the aftercare program, to give them an ability to say they've got a space over there. This would then free up the education building. So one of the things I was thinking about in terms of that was, we currently pay for us to have a counseling center off campus. So we're renting a space up the street for our Anona Counseling Center, which is money just being poured into a building that is not ours. So if we bring them back, we can actually take some of that funding in order to help pay some of the bill that would be for this building. The other part of the building, so I'm thinking this is sort of like we don't have the education building up there, but if everyone wants to get them facing this way, this side of the building, lower part becomes the counseling center. The other part we can convert into either more adult classrooms. We could expand our academy. There's many different options we could consider for the rest of the space to still have available for use for our campus. But get the students from ACDC Anona Child Development Center, into spaces that are appropriate for their child development, to make sure that they are supported the way that they're supposed to be, and growing up in a church that is safe, loving, kind, caring, and inviting them to, as they grow, follow this wonderful person named Jesus Christ. And if you've ever been to a chapel, or if you've never been to a chapel, I would invite you, and you can see what that looks like, because it's beautiful to see those kids in there singing their hearts out to Jesus. Nothing but beautiful. Or come for one of their Christmas moments. That's my next dream. That's the next hope. And let me tell you this. I've already got $500,000 for it. All right, so the same person that contributed towards the playground, we follow through. We did that. And when we start talking about the next thing, there comes the next 500,000. The question is, where's our hearts? Because this would stretch us. This would stretch us, especially in light of everything I just shared. I do not want to operate from a place of fear. I will not choose to operate from a place of fear. I think that God calls us forward in spite of the fears that we have. And sometimes you have to take a risk to move forward. So I'm going to be inviting the pardon? Thanks, Paul. I'll be talking about this, obviously, to our congregation a little bit more. This is a good floater group for me to talk about it a little bit and say, who do we want to be? Who do we want to be moving forward? Do we want to have Casey come up here and say, there's now 70 kids in there that are coming to know Jesus Christ? Do we want that? And if we do, we got to put our hearts behind it and make it a commitment and say we do that together, even if it stretches us a little bit. So we will continue to work through a couple different things. One, obviously, the whole situation with the retirement plan. I will keep you informed. I'll let you know when I know the number, you'll know the number. Fair? All right, so when I know that number, I will either gather you again or I'll announce it in church. The problem with announcing it in church at this point is I haven't had the whole conversation with all of those people. Feel free, unlike what I made them do with cone of silence, no cone of silence. If you want to talk to other people in the church and say, heard this, you need to watch online because this is now recorded for everybody who's online. Tell them if they want to, they can skip over all that fun stuff at the beginning, which was the good times, and get to the really bad times because that's what you really want to hear about. And then make sure they tell them to watch all the way to the end so they can hear about this. That Anona is not pausing. We are moving forward in faith, taking our next step of saying, who is God calling us to be now? Let's pray. God, I thank you for the hearts of every person in this room. I thank you for the questions that they've asked, for the concerns they've raised. Lord, because we truly are better together. We're better if we get the thoughts and making sure that we've addressed all of the situations, whether on the good side or the difficult side makes no difference. We are seeking to follow you, and we're seeking to do that with Christ-like integrity, Christ-like character. And God, we just want to lay our lives, lay our church, because it really is your church in your hands, and ask that you guide us. Help us not to make stupid mistakes, knowing that we will. Help us not to be rude to one another and offensive to one another, even though we know we will. Help us to have your heart, your grace, your character, your understanding, your love for one another, because we know we can. Because your spirit dwells within us. I ask, God, that you bless this congregation to do even more in your name, to reach even more in your name, and to be a place that is safe for all to explore what it means to follow you. give us the courage to walk that way. Amen. Thank you, guys. Have a great night. I'll hang around for a few minutes afterwards if you have any questions.